The headlines tonight on Dateline 2018.
This is a decision which is in the best interests of our entire United Kingdom.
Brexit. We have a deal, and that deal might be no deal, because nobody wants the deal that's been dealt.
Not the people who wanted a deal, not the people who didn't want a deal, not even the people who made the deal.
Well, I felt the proposed deal with the EU suffered two fatal flaws.
As the most populated state in America burns to the ground, experts are once again divided on whether or not it's because of climate change. I say divided, not 50-50, more of a 98-2, although even that's probably quite generous, more 99-1, and well, that isn't really an expert, but more in the pay of special interest groups, but still, opinion is divided.
We'll have a special report which will hopefully put this thorny issue to bed once and for all later in the programme.
You've just stumped up for a 10-man round.
How generous.
Yes, premium lagers, artisan gins, fever tree tonic and large wines.
Very generous.
Yes, but they all had an early start and headed off after one drink.
This is Dateline 2018.
Good evening. In a tumultuous week for the Prime Minister, who's been left carrying the can for a deal she came up with that is so breathtakingly bad that even her Brexit secretary, who actually wrote the bloody thing, quit in protest. Amber Rudd, who windrushed the Windrushers, is now back in government. And some people are seriously talking about Michael Gove as future PM material.
It's a binfire!
This deal gives us no voice, no votes, no MEPs, no commissioner.
And as the laughter begins to die off, as people realise that Britain really is this stupid, even Jeremy Corbyn has nailed his colours to the mast on how he'd vote in a rerun of the EU referendum.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to vote, what the options would be at that time.
To discuss this in more depth, we're joined by an accurate cross-section of the country, as seen by the media. James.
Joining us now from our Coldstream studio is head of the pro-European think tank Brussels 71 and former Liberal Democrat member of the Welsh Assembly, Lauren Tudor.
And on the pro-Brexit side, or as I like to think of it, the side of the ordinary British voter, is the webmaster at we'reNotRacistBut.com, Igor Tudor. Oh, that's a strange coincidence. No relation, I assume.
Brothers. Yes, brothers. As in the Dire Straits album, but brothers in arms, but we don't really talk.
Well, that explains why you look nothing like one another. Mr. Tudor.
Yes.
No, the boring one.
Me?
No, the racist one, Igor. With the collapse of another Tory cabinet over its latest Brexit deal, would you say that a no-deal Brexit is an inevitability?
Well, I think the word inevitable is very overused. It's more a case of suck it and see.
What do you make of this suck it and see approach by your brother? You can't disagree with the will of the people, can you?
Well, I don't think it's as simple as the will of the people, especially given the events of the last week.
It's the will of the people.
No, it's not as...
Will of the people.
Jack, before you destroy all credibility in the media, let me step in. Igor, you're the racist one, yes?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it.
You say the will of the people, but even people who voted for Brexit didn't vote for this.
3 words. Will of the people.
4 words, you idiot.
It is.
Yeah.
Jack, you'll have your turn in a second. Lauren, the sensible one, it's your brother. Tell him why it's not the will of the people.
Yes, you're quite right.
Yes, you're right.
Will of the people is an oversimplification. It's desperation politics. It's typical of this attempted right-wing coup that's falling apart.
You're just going to sit there and take this, Igor?
Shut up.
Shut up. I will not shut up. I will not shut up.
Just make
I've had enough of this. You're going to sit here and take this. You can just shut up. Flying high. We're like buccaneers on a ship, doing very, very well. It's going to be...
What's going on? What are you doing?
This is Dateline 2018. It can only happen once.
Unless we redo the calendars or something like that, which is highly unlikely.
Our next story. America has been on fire politically on and off since around the year 2000, but real fire has become a surprisingly common occurrence in the state of California. This has been devastating for many, many people, except, of course, for the Kardashians, who hired a private fire brigade. Stay classy, guys. Of course, the usual accusations of man-made climate change have raised their head due to the very obvious presence of man-made climate change. But modern-day sage and self-styled climate scientist Donald J. Trump has quashed such theories, making perfect sense in the process.
I have a strong opinion. I want great climate. We're going to have that, and we're going to have forests that are very safe.
I just don't know what to believe.
Well, thankfully, James, you don't have to decide. To tell us all how to think, here's Colette Coleman.
It's become very fashionable to claim that sea levels are on the rise as the result of something called man-made climate change. Well, I've been doing some measuring this afternoon, and I can tell you categorically, it's pretty much stayed the same. Anyway, we all know it rains when God cries. So maybe stop upsetting God. I'm looking at you. Some crackpot scientists, probably in the minority, keep banging on about how ravaging the planet's finite resources for short-term gain might have some sort of negative long-term effects on our species. But what these elitist ideologues never mention is that cow farts count towards a percentage of methane. I mean, it's quite a small percentage, but still, you can't write it off, can you? And we're not going to kill all the cows, are we? Not very vegan, is it? Bloody hippies. We've all heard the arguments from the lefty bleeding hearts, but what about the poorly represented, common sense voices of the ill-informed? Well, consider yourself granted some airtime.
Would we let the house burn because there is no fire engine?
This blatant lie about the planet being in mortal danger from something that's not happening.
Would we let an Ethiopian starve because there is no truck to get the food from the port?
So Obama's talking about all of this with the global warming and that, and a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay? It's a hoax.
I do not believe Hurricane Harvey hit Houston because they have an openly lesbian mayor. But that's more believable than it was caused by climate change.
There is no definite proof of global warming.
Because if carbon's toxic, they've got to surveil it. Thus, they have a jurisdiction to control our lives. And tornadoes are way down. Of course, they lie and say they're way up to try to get carbon taxes. A lot of the so-called Doppler towers are really weather control towers. Oh, it's for the Earth and global warming satellites. It's all lies.
Difficult to disagree when you actually get to hear both sides of the argument for once. Anyway, back to my own climate change experiment. See, it's not that hard to be a scientist. And if anything, I think it's actually gone down a bit. This is Colette Coleman for Dateline 2018 on Truth Island. Population, me.
This is Dateline 2018. You can tweet us or follow us on Instagram at Dateline 2018, and we're at facebook.com/Dateline.
Now, as you know, this is a family show, and this week we're handing over our letters bag segment to our younger audience, who've been doing some pictures.
Drawing some draws. Let's take a wee look.
Now, this one's from Gillian, who's aged 9. She's done a lovely picture of me and James at the desk.
That's lovely, Gillian. You've really captured our thinness very well.
Thank you, Gillian. I do have a neck, though.
Here's one from Brian, who's 12, and he's drawn what I think is a boat.
That's a bit odd, because this is a news show, nothing to do with boats.
If Brian's parents are watching, maybe get that one checked out.
Yeah, just to be safe, get them checked out.
I hope you've got another kid, because I think you got a dud there.
Matilda, who's 5.5, sent us this, and it's supposed to be...
No idea.
Not a clue.
Is it a metaphor for the death of art?
Look, it's rubbish, Matilda. It's probably best that someone tells you this early. Cruel to be kind and all that, but give up now, because you have no talent.
We're not even talking about this picture, Matilda. We're talking about you. I've read between the lines, and if this is an expression of your soul, you don't have one.
And the last one is Hans, who hasn't put his age.
That's good.
Yes, that's the best one. He wins the prize this week. And the prize is a pair of walkie-talkies.
Who can say what mischief you'll be getting up to with them?
And that's the end of Children's Art Corner. Don't send any more of your pictures in, though, because we're not going to do it again.
Give me a sting! International news now, and the Fijian Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama was re-elected this week on 52% of the votes in the country's general election, with his opposing number trailing at...
Fiji? Elections in Fiji?
Yeah, it's news. Just because it's not Brexit or Trump.
Yeah, no, but no one cares.
No, people are always complaining that the news is like a broken record, it's Trump and Brexit, and they're always saying they want interesting international news. Well...
Yeah, but they're lying. People say they never watch pornography. People say they never piss in the shower. People claim to have eclectic music tastes. No one does.
That's true. Everyone does claim to have eclectic music tastes, but no one does.
I actually do have quite an eclectic music taste.
Well, me too, actually. I like a lot of different things.
Bottom line, no one cares about Fiji.
That's such an ignorant thing to say. I think it's fascinating.
All right, okay. Without looking at the autocue, who just got re-elected as Fiji's Prime Minister?
Frank Bambalambalam, Black Betty.
Here's the news where you are.
Hello, and welcome to Dateline Scotland. Glasgow officially announces its bid to have Arthur's seats moved within the year on the grounds that something so scenic and beautiful should be squandered by Scotland's second city, the one with a so-called castle, because Glasgow's got a heart. It's got a soul, whether you want it or not. Everyone's got a hill over you, and the only reason you wouldn't want to is if you're from Edinburgh. And Nicola Sturgeon finally sees sense on separation.
I've got some difficult news for you. I've been worrying about how to break this to you. But I'm going to have to just come out with it. I think we have to just forget about this independence lark.
But first, we go over to Dunfermline Sheriff Court now, where our reporter Nathan Paisley joins us live with an update on the court case that has shocked a nation, a fight which took place outside Fat Freddy's chip shop during March of this year. Nathan, bring us up to speed.
It was outside Fat Freddy's here in the town of Dunfermline.
I think we've got a problem with the line. Nathan, can
this morning that...
What? Oh, good. Well, can we go back to the start?
What? Yes, right.
No, Nathan, can you?
No.
I think we've lost you, Nathan. Can you hear me?
It was outside Fat Freddy's here in the town of Dunfermline.
Oh, well, can you get us up to speed with the...
George, I can hear you. I can hear loud and clear, George.
Hello?
Yeah. No, it was outside. It was out. Fat Freddy's here in Dunfermline, where the incident took place just 3 months.